It was April 1st, 2023, and my cousin Jake and I had cooked up what we thought was the perfect prank. Even though we were both 19 now, the thrill of April Fool's Day still had its grip on us. We'd been partners in crime since we were kids, always trying to outdo our previous pranks. This year, Jake had a plan that seemed harmless enough but promised maximum laughs. Jake had found this old creepy clown mask at a thrift store. The paint was chipped, and the smile was unnervingly wide. The idea was simple. I'd wear the mask and jump out to scare unsuspecting people in the park while Jake filmed their reactions. We'd post the best ones online and bask in our comedic genius. We chose Maplewood Park for our antics. It was a sprawling place with winding paths, dense clusters of trees, and plenty of nooks and crannies, perfect for hiding. That afternoon, the park was unusually quiet. A few joggers here and there, a couple walking their dog, and then we spotted him. An elderly man, probably in his late 70s, walking alone with a slow, deliberate pace. He seemed like the ideal target, someone who wouldn't be too startled but would give us a good reaction. We positioned ourselves near a thick bush along the path he was taking. I crouched down, adjusting the mask, the rubbery smell filling my nostrils. Jake was a few feet away, his phone poised and ready. As the old man approached, I felt a surge of adrenaline. When he was just a few steps away, I leaped out, arms flailing, letting out a loud guttural yell. But instead of the startled jump or amused chuckle we expected, the man did something that sent a chill down my spine. He stopped, turned his head slowly towards me and smiled. Not a friendly, amused smile, but a wide, toothy grin that seemed almost predatory. His eyes, a pale, icy blue, locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach churn. I took a step back, suddenly feeling like the prey instead of the predator. The man's grin widened, if that was even possible, and he took a step forward. His movements were slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. The air around us felt heavier, the sounds of the park distant and muted. "Hey man, it's just a joke," Jake called out, trying to defuse the situation. He stepped closer, lowering his phone. "We didn't mean any harm." The old man's gaze shifted to Jake, his grin unwavering. Without a word, he reached into the pocket of his long, tattered coat and pulled out something that made my blood run cold. A rusty, old-fashioned straight razor. The kind you'd see in old barber shops, but this one was stained and worn. Jake's eyes widened in realization, and he took a step back, hands raised. "Whoa, okay. Let's all just calm down here." But the man didn't stop. He took another step towards Jake, the razor catching the dimming sunlight, casting a brief, blinding glint. The atmosphere was thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. "Run," I shouted, tearing the mask off and tossing it aside. Jake didn't need to be told twice. We both turned and sprinted down the path, our hearts pounding like drums in our chests. The world around us blurred as we focused solely on escaping. But the old man was fast, too fast for someone his age. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw him still grinning, the razor held loosely in his hand, keeping pace with us effortlessly. His eyes never wavered, locked onto us with a predatory gleam. We veered off the main path, crashing through the underbrush, branches scratching at our arms and faces. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, the panic fueling our flight. I could hear Jake just behind me, his footsteps pounding in sync with mine. Suddenly, Jake let out a strangled cry. I skidded to a halt, turning to see him sprawled on the ground, his foot caught in a hidden root. The old man was closing in, his grin now a grotesque mask of malice. Without thinking, I rushed back, grabbing Jake under the arms and heaving him up. "Come on, we have to move." But it was too late. The old man was upon us. He raised the razor and time seemed to slow. I could see every detail, the rust on the blade, the deep lines on his face, the unnatural gleam in his eyes. Then out of nowhere, a deafening bark shattered the moment. A large black dog barreled into the old man, knocking him off balance. The razor flew from his hand, landing harmlessly in the grass. The dog growled, standing protectively between us and the man. "Max," a voice called out. A woman emerged from the trees, her eyes wide with concern. "What's going on here?" The old man scrambled to his feet, his grin finally gone, replaced by a look of pure hatred. Without a word, he turned and disappeared into the woods, moving with an unnatural speed. The woman approached, her eyes darting between us and the direction the man had fled. "Are you boys okay?" We nodded, too shaken to speak. Max, the dog, wagged his tail, looking up at us with bright, friendly eyes as if he hadn't just saved our lives. After thanking the woman profusely and explaining what had happened, we made our way back to Jake's car in silence. The weight of what had just occurred pressed heavily on us. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin, those pale blue eyes, the glint of the razor. The realization that our harmless prank could have ended in tragedy was a sobering thought. We never spoke of that day again, an unspoken agreement to bury the memory. But every year, when April 1st rolls around, I can't help but feel a shiver run down my spine, remembering the day our joke turned into a nightmare. Then out of nowhere, a deafening bark shattered the moment. A large black dog barreled into the old man, knocking him off balance. The razor flew from his hand, landing harmlessly in the grass. The dog growled, standing protectively between us and the man. "Max," a voice called out. A woman emerged from the trees, her eyes wide with concern. "What's going on here?" The old man scrambled to his feet, his grin finally gone, replaced by a look of pure hatred. Without a word, he turned and disappeared into the woods, moving with an unnatural speed. The woman approached, her eyes darting between us and the direction the man had fled. "Are you boys okay?" We nodded, too shaken to speak. Max, the dog, wagged his tail, looking up at us with bright, friendly eyes as if he hadn't just saved our lives. After thanking the woman profusely and explaining what had happened, we made our way back to Jake's car in silence. The weight of what had just occurred pressed heavily on us. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin, those pale blue eyes, the glint of the razor. The realization that our harmless prank could have ended in tragedy was a sobering thought. We never spoke of that day again, an unspoken agreement to bury the memory. But every year, when April 1st rolls around, I can't help but feel a shiver run down my spine, remembering the day our joke turned into a nightmare. We wrapped Jonah in a blanket, left him on the couch, and whispered that we'd come back for help. The guilt made my stomach twist. But that guy in the woods, he wasn't normal. We ran back into the forest, not knowing where we were going. We just ran. Branches scraped our arms and faces. The cold bit at our skin. Sam was ahead, holding my hand, pulling me along. Lila trailed behind, mumbling Mia's name over and over. Then we heard something. Not footsteps. Something heavier. Clumsy. Breathing. Like a growl mixed with a wheeze. I turned my head. It was Mia. But she didn't look like herself anymore. Her face was pale. Her eyes looked wrong. Her clothes were different. Now she wore big black boots, a gray jacket, and had something tied around her waist. She walked funny, like every joint in her body was out of place. She didn't say a word. She just charged straight at Sam. He tried to fight back, but she was fast. Too fast. She hit him once in the stomach and he dropped, gasping for air. Then she pulled out a hunting knife. I ran. I tripped and hit the ground hard. My palms scraped against rocks and dirt. I didn't care. I scrambled up and ran again. Behind me, I heard Lila scream, but I couldn't stop. I ran until I couldn't hear anything. Just my heart pounding in my ears. I hid under a fallen tree, trying to catch my breath. My arms were shaking. My chest hurt. My brain was spinning. That wasn't Mia. But then I remembered something. Last year, Mia's little brother Noah had gone through a bad breakup. He thought the girl he was seeing had cheated on him. That wasn't true. We had made it up as a joke, a dumb prank. We even showed him fake messages and pictures. We thought it was funny. But Noah didn't. He stopped coming to school. He stopped talking to people. A few months later, he killed himself. Mia stopped talking to us after that. She said she needed space. We didn't push. Now I understand. This wasn't some random psycho in the woods. This was revenge. You thought you could forget, huh? A voice whispered from the dark. Mia. She was right behind me. You laughed while my brother broke inside. You thought it was just a game. April Fools, right? I turned and saw her face up close. Her eyes were full of fire. Her hand held the knife tight. I trained for this. I planned everything. Every step. Every scare. Every scream. This is for Noah. I ran again. Branches slapped my face. My legs felt like they were on fire. I tripped again but kept going, then I heard a scream behind me. A loud, sharp cry of pain. I turned. Mia had fallen into a ditch. Her leg was bent the wrong way, her body stuck in the mud and leaves. Callie, she cried. Help me. I stood there, panting, heart racing. I thought of Jonah, of Sam, of Lila, of everything we did to her brother. She reached out, tears running down her face. Please. I turned around and walked away. You're just like the rest of them, she shouted. You left me. Just like you left Noah. I kept walking until I found a road. A truck stopped when it saw me. The driver called the cops. They asked me what happened. I told them most of it, but I didn't tell them Mia was still out there. It had been almost a year since we'd seen Jamie. We were all close growing up. Me, Jamie, Leo, and Nick. We'd hang out after school, play video games, just be dumb teens. But after Jamie's sister Emily died in a car crash last fall, he cut everyone off. He was 19, same as us, and he just vanished. No texts, no calls, no posts. Nothing. Then one Friday night, totally out of the blue, I got a message from him. Come over, bring the guys. That's all it said. No, hey, no, what's up? Just that. At first I didn't know what to think, but deep down I was kind of hopeful. Maybe he was finally ready to come back, to talk, to hang out again. I told Leo and Nick and we all agreed we'd go see him. It was 2023 and we hadn't been to his place since last summer. Jamie lived out in the countryside, just outside of a little town in Oregon called Bright Hollow. His parents were gone for the weekend, so we figured it'd just be us. We brought snacks, drinks, and the same dumb energy we always had. But when we pulled up to his house, it didn't look like the place we remembered. The yard was full of weeds, the lights were off. The windows looked dirty, like no one had touched them in months. It gave off this weird, heavy feeling. You know, when a place just feels wrong, like it's holding its breath. Still, we knocked. Jamie opened the door, said nothing, and let us in. He looked rough, pale, skinny, with dark circles under his eyes. His hair was messy and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. We tried to talk to him, ask how he was, joke around a bit, but he barely reacted, just stared or nodded. It was uncomfortable. The house smelled like dust and something I couldn't quite place. Like something sour. That's when Leo whispered an idea. Let's pull the old ghost prank, you remember that one? We used to do this dumb trick in high school. One of us would disappear, make creepy noises, then jump out and scare everyone. Classic. Stupid fun. It was April 1st, April Fools. Maybe it would make Jamie laugh, loosen him up a bit, so we decided to go for it. I said I'd be the one to hide and do the scare. While the others distracted Jamie in the kitchen, I slipped down the hallway and ducked into the shadows. The plan was to knock over a broom or make some whispering sounds. Just enough to freak him out a little. But before I could start, I heard something strange. Jamie was talking, not to Leo or Nick, to himself. His voice was low and shaky, like he was scared, but the words didn't make sense. Something about the eyes and she's still here. I leaned out to peek, and what I saw gave me chills. He was sitting on the floor, staring at the ceiling, mouth moving fast like he was arguing with someone. His hands were twitching. Then, all of a sudden, he stopped, and his head turned sharply, right toward me. I froze. He got up slowly, like something was pulling his body like a puppet. His arms hung stiffly and he dragged one foot as he walked. His eyes locked on the dark hallway. "You think this is funny?" he said, loud and flat. I didn't move. My heart was racing. Jamie grinned, wide and creepy. His eyes didn't look right. Like he wasn't really seeing me. Like he was seeing through me. "You came all this way after all this time and you're pulling ghost jokes?" he said, his voice getting louder. "After what happened to Emily." I stepped forward to explain. I was going to say it was just a joke. But before I could open my mouth, he grabbed my arm, tight. His fingers were ice cold. His nails dug into my skin. I yanked back and stumbled into the wall, then he screamed. A loud, deep scream that echoed through the house. Leo and Nick ran in. Jamie grabbed a glass bottle off the table and smashed it against the wall. Broken glass flew everywhere. "You want to play games? It's April Fools, right?" he yelled. "Let's play." His chest rose and fell like he couldn't catch his breath. He was laughing now, but not in a happy way. It sounded broken. Leo stepped forward, his hands up. "Jamie, man, it's just us. We didn't mean anything. We just wanted to see you. It was a stupid joke, that's all." Jamie laughed harder. Then he said, "This is perfect. You guys gave me what I needed." Suddenly he rushed at us. Leo tried to stop him, but Jamie swung the broken bottle. The sharp edge cut Leo's arm. We panicked and ran. We didn't want to hurt him. He was our friend. But in that moment, we were scared of him. Jamie chased us down the hall. His laugh turned into growling. He was fast, too fast. He tackled Nick and slammed his head into the wall. We pulled Nick away and ducked into a guest room. Locked the door. Jamie started banging on it. "You shouldn't have done that." "I just wanted to talk." Nick was on the floor, blood running down his face. Leo pressed a towel against the cut. We looked around. No weapons, no way out. The one window was way too high. Then everything went quiet. No more banging. Just silence. Then we heard the lock click. Slowly. Then the sound of something scratching across the wood. "You can't leave now," Jamie whispered from the other side. "You started this." I grabbed a lamp. Leo held up a chair. We were ready to fight. The door creaked open. We shoved it hard. It slammed into Jamie, knocking him down. We bolted for the front door. He reached out and grabbed my leg. I hit the ground. Hard. "Can't take a joke," he hissed. "It's April Fools." I kicked him in the chest and he let go. Leo and Nick pulled me up. We ran like our lives depended on it. Maybe they did. We jumped into the car. Leo's hands were shaking as he fumbled with the keys. The second the engine started, we tore out of there. I looked back one last time. Jamie was standing in the doorway, smiling. When we told the police, they went to check it out. They found Jamie sitting on the floor in the living room, alone. No fight, no struggle, just smiling. They brought it on themselves, he told them. I just wanted to talk. They sent him to a psychiatric hospital in Portland. I visited once. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared out the window like he was watching something no one else could see. And that was it. Jamie never came back from whatever place his mind had gone. And even though I try to forget, I still hear that whisper sometimes, in my dreams, or when it's really, really quiet, like someone's waiting.